All right, picture this. A massive city, home to almost 9 million people, so choked by smog that schools and businesses have to shut down. I know, it sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, but this is the day-to-day reality for people in Tehran. So today, we're going to break down this incredibly complex crisis, and more importantly, the ambitious 10-year plan that's designed to let its citizens finally breathe again.
Okay, let's just jump right in with a number that really puts this whole crisis into perspective. $17 billion. That's the estimated economic hit from air pollution every single year. To give you an idea of how huge that is, it's more than the entire country's yearly health budget. This isn't just some environmental problem, it's a full-blown economic catastrophe.
But as staggering as that financial cost is, it's nothing compared to the human cost. Take a look at this number, 2,194. That's how many extra deaths happened in just 1 year, from just one type of pollutant, particulate matter. And we've got to remember, these aren't just numbers on a slide. These are people, lives cut short, simply because of the air they had to breathe.
And for the people who actually live there, this is what daily life looks like. The air quality index, the AQI, it regularly jumps over 200. Now, for anyone who doesn't track this stuff, that's officially classified as very unhealthy. We're talking about a level where everyone, no matter how healthy you are, is at risk. It forces people to stay inside and turns the most basic thing we do, breathing, into a dangerous act.
So the key thing to get here is that this isn't just, a few bad smog days here and there. It's like the city is under a permanent state of siege from its own air. And to really get a handle on the solution, we first need to understand exactly what they're up against. And listen, this isn't some warning from our random environmental group. This quote is from the country's vice president. Let that sink in. If air pollution gets worse than this, it will kill. That is a brutally honest, life-or-death admission coming straight from the top.
So you might be asking, why is it so bad in Tehran? Well, to really get it, you have to understand it's not just about the pollution itself, it's about where that pollution is going. The city's own location is a huge part of the problem.
See, Tehran's biggest problem is its geography. Think of the city sitting in a giant bowl. To the north, you've got the massive Alborz mountain range, which acts like a giant wall. It literally blocks the winds that would normally come through and sweep all the pollution away. So every single emission from every car, every factory, it just gets trapped inside this natural container with no way out.
And this geography creates the absolute perfect storm for something called a temperature inversion, especially during the winter. What happens is, a layer of warm air sits on top of the city, acting just like a lid on a pot. It traps all the colder, denser, and super polluted air right down at ground level. So the smog just builds and builds and builds, day after day, with absolutely nowhere to go.
Okay, so we've got the trap. Now, what's filling it up? Let's talk about villain number one, the energy sector, and a pretty toxic secret that's at the heart of the winter pollution crisis. And that secret has a name, mazout. It's a heavy, super low-quality fuel oil. But here's the kicker. It's sulfur content. We're talking about 3.5%. To put that in context, that is 7 times dirtier than the fuel that international cargo ships are allowed to burn. Burning this stuff is basically like mainlining poison directly into the city's air.
So the obvious question is, why on earth would anyone use this stuff? Well, it's not an accident. It's really a chain reaction of bad policy decisions. First, when natural gas runs short in the winter, power plants switch over to burning mazout. Then, to make matters worse, sometimes the country deliberately burns this dirty fuel at home just so it can sell cleaner, more expensive fuels abroad for cash. It's literally a strategy that trades away the health of its own citizens. And the whole problem is compounded by sanctions that have stopped them from upgrading their refineries to make cleaner fuel in the first place.
All right, let's shift gears and talk about villain number two. And this one is interesting because it's also the single biggest opportunity for a real solution. We're talking about the traffic, all the vehicles clogging up Tehran streets.
Now, when we talk about particulate matter, those tiny, nasty particles that are the most dangerous to our health, the source is just, it's shocking how concentrated it is. Get this. A whopping 85% of all the particulate matter from vehicles comes from just one category, heavy-duty vehicles. We're talking trucks and buses.
So think about that. This tiny slice of the city's total vehicle fleet is responsible for almost all the damage. So why? Well, it's because the fleet is ancient. Most of these trucks and buses barely meet the Euro 1 emission standard. That's a standard from the early 1990s. Some are even worse. This makes them, without a doubt, the #1 target for any serious cleanup plan.
Okay, so we've pretty much diagnosed the patient, right? We have a city trapped by its own geography, being poisoned by dirty fuel and a fleet of ancient vehicles. So now let's look at the prescription. And it's a really detailed 10-year blueprint for how to get clean air.
And right away, you can see this plan marks a huge shift in thinking. The old way of doing things was pretty basic, just banning cars based on whether their license plate ended in an odd or even number. The new way is so much smarter. It's a congestion charge. Basically, the price you pay to drive into the city center depends on how clean your car is. The dirtier your vehicle, the more you pay. It's a smart, market-based solution.
And the best part? We know it actually works. The data is super clear. After they brought in this new pricing policy, emissions just plummeted across the board. Look at this. Carbon monoxide dropped 20%, hydrocarbons went down 18%, and nitrogen oxides fell 14%. This isn't just a theory. It's hard proof that this strategy gets results.
So, the full roadmap is broken down into 3 really clear phases. Step 1, stabilize the emergency. Stop the bleeding. Step 2, transform the fleet and the infrastructure. And Step 3, transition the whole city to a zero-emission future. It's a really logical, step-by-step plan.
So, in those first 3 years, it's all about immediate first aid. First, ban the use of that nasty mazout fuel in any power plant near the city. Second, fully roll out that smart pollution pricing everywhere. And third, close a huge loophole by finally including motorcycles, which are massive polluters, by the way, in the low-emission zones. These are the critical first steps.
All right, next up is the real heavy lifting, the transformation phase. This is where they'll launch a mandatory but subsidized program to get those old, dirty, heavy-duty vehicles off the road for good. And any new ones have to meet modern Euro 6 or even zero emission standards. At the exact same time, the plan is to expand the city's successful public bus system and get the electrical grid ready for a whole lot of electric vehicles.
And finally, Phase 3 is all about locking in those gains for the long haul. This is the endgame where the city really transitions to a sustainable model. We're talking about hitting some seriously ambitious targets for EVs, 25,000 electric taxis, 4,000 electric buses, and 400,000 electric motorcycles. It also means moving the biggest industrial polluters way, way outside the city's air trap, and crucially, enforcing a clean fuel standard across the entire country.
But of course, the big question is, who's going to pay for all this? And this is where the plan is actually pretty brilliant. It's designed to be self-funding. The money that comes in from that congestion pricing, it gets funneled right back into helping people buy new, cleaner vehicles. And the money they can make from capturing and selling wasted natural gas, that's the stuff that's usually just burned off, can pay for all the infrastructure upgrades. It's so smart. It literally turns the sources of the pollution into the funding for the solution.
So here's the bottom line. The science is totally clear. The economic argument is a slam dunk. And the technical roadmap, the blueprint for survival, is laid out right on the table. All the pieces are there. The only question left, the really big one, is whether the political will to actually build it will be as strong and as stubborn as the smog it's trying to defeat.